Well, let's go through a few of the scores in the big games we had over the weekend. And we'll start that off with the number one team in the country, the best team in the country. Alabama played Mississippi State, another top ranked type team. And they shut out another top ranked type team. They shut out LSU last week, Mississippi State, 24-0. Was it amazingly dominant? Probably not quite as amazingly dominant as the LSU game the week before. But, Tua Tagovailoa threw another interception. So they're on the way back down. But until further notice, Bama's probably the best college football team any of us have ever seen, in my opinion. Next up is Auburn. Played a game with UGA, and Georgia beat them 27-10. They did it at Georgia, and they did it by just being flat better. Physically got after Auburn. Great rushing performance by DeAndre Swift, who is so aptly named because he is Swift. I thought of that all by myself. Next up is Clemson. They played at Boston College. Early on, this was a game. This was a tough game. But Clemson just ground and eventually came out with that 27-7 win on the road. And now until the ACC championship game, that was probably their toughest game. But Clemson's a team that could potentially be the one that knocks off Alabama, but we'll see. They've had a few pretty good games here lately. Next up, the place where defense goes to die, the Big 12. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. This game is always referred to as Bedlam, and it was Bedlam. Oklahoma just squeezing it out at the very end with a 2-point conversion, and they beat Oklahoma State by a single point. Next up, Washington State and Colorado. In case you don't know, Washington State's a top 10 team, having a pretty special year. Colorado started off really well and is in kind of a death spiral right now. They lose 31-7. Next is a team that's the darling of the media besides Notre Dame, and mainly because so many guys in the media went to Syracuse. They beat Louisville and Bobby Petrino, who was fired, by the way, not long after this game, 54-23. Dominant performance by Syracuse. Just good job by them, let's put it that way. And they have Notre Dame coming up, so let's see if they can be the team that knocks off the Fighting Irish. Next up after that is UAB and Southern Miss. And you might say the Blazers, UAB, what in the hell are they doing in this list? Well, all Bill Clark and his football team has done this year is go 9-1. They're now officially going to be playing for the Conference USA Championship. And in the context of the big football world, not really a big deal. But let's not forget one important thing. 2 years ago, they weren't playing football at UAB. They had dropped it. And they were in the process of trying to come back, but they were just kind of practicing, didn't have a real team. And you can't say enough about the job that those players and Bill Clark and those fans have done down at Birmingham. UAB is a great story. Look into it. It's worth checking out. Texas Tech and Texas played. Well, Texas squeaked one out. They managed not to screw this up, and they won by a touchdown. But again, another one of those games where defense was semi-optional. Speaking of optional defense, UCF, the team with the longest winning streak in the country, hosted Navy last week, and they beat Navy by 11, 35-24. Maybe not as dominant as it should have been given the season that Navy's had this year, but Navy came up with about 370 yards rushing and possessed the ball enough that they were able to limit the number of points that UCF could score. And I had a game on Saturday night that I'm going to mention that in case you didn't see it, check this out. 59-49, 108 points, about 1,100 yards in total offense. Took about 4 hours to play this game. It was something pretty special. But again, the American Conference is getting to be kind of like the Big 12 light. And I say that only because the offenses are great and the defenses, I don't know where the hell the defenses go. But they do definitely go somewhere.